Marcus Thompson was a man who valued peace above all else. A middle-aged black man in his early 40s, he had worked hard for everything he owned. His suburban home was a modest but elegant two-story, complete with a freshly mowed lawn, flower beds that he meticulously maintained, and a driveway wide enough to host a few friends for weekend BBQs. The neighborhood itself was quiet, orderly, and safe, or so Marcus thought. At first, the harassment seemed small, almost trivial. His trash can, a standard black bin with a green lid, had been overturned once or twice. Marcus assumed it was kids playing pranks or perhaps the neighborhood squirrels. But when it happened again and again, he started paying attention. It wasn't random. Someone was targeting him. One crisp Saturday morning, Marcus stepped outside to take out the trash and found the bin toppled over yet again. His brow furrowed. "Not again," he muttered. But this time, he noticed footprints nearby, distinctive loafers that weren't part of the usual foot traffic in the neighborhood. He looked up to see Karen Simmons, a formidable middle-aged white woman known for being a strict HOA board member, standing across the street. Her arms were crossed, her lips curled into a slight, self-satisfied smirk. Karen had a reputation in the neighborhood. She controlled everything, from lawn height to mailbox decorations, and she took joy in enforcing her rules, often going to extreme lengths. Marcus had never had a direct confrontation with her, but now he understood what had been happening. Karen had been deliberately sabotaging his trash cans. Marcus knew he had two choices: ignore her and hope she grew bored, or take action. He chose action, but carefully. He began by installing a discreet security camera near his garage, angled perfectly to capture the driveway and the trash cans. That evening, he waited. At 11:07 p.m., the camera blinked. Karen stepped onto Marcus' property, moving deliberately toward the trash can. Marcus knew he had two choices: ignore her and hope she grew bored, or take action. He chose action, but carefully. He began by installing a discreet security camera near his garage, angled perfectly to capture the driveway and the trash cans. That evening, he waited. At 11:07 p.m., the camera blinked. Karen stepped onto Marcus' property, moving deliberately toward the trash can. She flipped it over with practiced ease, then retreated back across the street, smirking as if she had achieved victory. Marcus watched the footage frame by frame, his jaw tight with frustration. But there was something else, an idea forming. If Karen wanted a game of petty control, Marcus was prepared to play her at her own game, but smarter. He began sketching out a plan in his notebook, considering technology, psychology, and creativity. He needed something that would teach Karen a lesson without putting himself at risk, something unexpected that would leave the neighborhood talking. Over the next few days, Marcus quietly observed Karen's routine. She left her house at 7:15 every morning to walk her dog, and she often passed by his driveway around 7:30. Her movements were predictable, making her a perfect target for a clever, non-violent counterattack. Marcus spent hours researching products online: automated trash cans, motion sensors, harmless prank devices, and gadgets that could be activated remotely. He discovered a few devices that could be integrated into a single system: motion detection, remote activation, and a surprising, messy but safe surprise for anyone who attempted to meddle with the bin. As Marcus planned, he also considered the psychological side of the confrontation. Karen thrived on public humiliation of others, subtle threats, and intimidation. If he could reverse the embarrassment onto her, subtly, in a way the neighborhood would notice, it would send a message louder than words. Meanwhile, Karen remained blissfully unaware of the surveillance and planning underway. She continued her morning patrols, occasionally muttering under her breath about Marcus' negligence for not keeping his trash bins in perfect alignment with HOA regulations. But Marcus had already begun to prepare something far beyond mere compliance or confrontation. By the end of the first week, Marcus had designed a prototype for a smart trash can, a bin equipped with hidden motion sensors, a small confetti cannon, harmless spray mechanisms, and a locking system that could be triggered remotely. The plan was intricate but foolproof. Karen would never see it coming. The stage was set. Marcus was ready. And now, all that remained was to wait for the perfect moment to activate his plan. Karen thought she was in control. But Marcus had prepared a surprise she could never have imagined. And when the day came, the entire neighborhood would watch the petty HOA war reach a dramatic, colorful climax. Marcus Thompson knew that a half-baked plan would fail. Karen wasn't just any petty neighbor, she was cunning, observant, and relentless. The moment he decided to counter her trash can antics, Marcus realized that every detail mattered. The first step was the trash can itself. A standard bin wouldn't do. He needed something technologically advanced yet subtle, something that would activate only when Karen touched it, and surprise her in a harmless but unforgettable way. After days of online research and comparing gadgets, Marcus ordered a motion-activated confetti cannon, a miniature harmless paint sprayer, a locking mechanism to prevent flipping from the outside, remote activation controls via smartphone. Once the packages arrived, Marcus transformed his garage into a makeshift laboratory. He placed the trash can on a workbench, dismantled it, and installed the sensors and gadgets meticulously. Each device was camouflaged. From the outside, it looked like a normal bin. Inside, it was a sophisticated trap. Marcus chuckled quietly, imagining Karen's face when she tried her usual tricks. Over the next week, Marcus tested the system multiple times. He rigged the motion sensor to trigger at specific heights and distances, ensuring it would only activate for someone of Karen's height and approach pattern. The confetti blast was calibrated not to harm anyone, but the surprise factor would be maximum. He even added a small harmless sprinkler that would spray water lightly, enough to startle without injury. While Marcus worked on the trash can, he also prepared the psychological element. He planted subtle hints around the neighborhood, flowers slightly rearranged, small notes of HOA rules in visible spots, so Karen would feel she was being watched. Marcus understood that part of revenge was perception. If she believed someone was onto her, her confidence would falter. On a particularly calm Thursday evening, Marcus ran a full dry test. He used a mannequin dressed in generic suburban clothing, pushing the bin exactly as Karen did. The confetti cannon fired, the sprinkler sprayed, and the lock prevented the bin from toppling. Marcus observed each reaction, adjusting timing and sensitivity. Perfect. Meanwhile, Karen remained oblivious. She continued her morning rounds, scrutinizing Marcus' lawn for violations. Marcus could almost predict her every move now, down to the way she would tilt her head while checking the alignment of the bins. This predictability was crucial. Marcus also recorded her past attempts on his security camera. Watching the footage repeatedly gave him insight. Karen was not only consistent but arrogant, thinking no one would ever challenge her authority. That arrogance would be her undoing. Finally, Marcus decided on the execution day. He waited for a weekend when most neighbors were at home. The plan: Karen would approach the trash can in the morning, as usual. Marcus, safely inside, would activate the devices at the exact right moment. The confetti, paint sprayer, and sprinkler would combine to create a messy yet harmless spectacle, leaving Karen embarrassed and the neighborhood buzzing with whispers. But Marcus didn't stop there. He knew that just a prank might not be enough. He needed proof. He set up an additional hidden camera to record Karen's reactions from multiple angles. If HOA tried to deny her harassment, Marcus would have undeniable evidence, turning the tables completely. The night before the operation, Marcus barely slept. He reviewed the plan again and again: timing, approach patterns, device calibration, camera angles, escape routes for Karen, everything. By morning, everything was ready. His heart raced, but he was confident. The sun had barely risen over Marcus' suburban street. Birds chirped lazily, sprinklers hissed over manicured lawns, and the neighborhood was slowly waking up. To Marcus, it was the perfect morning for justice. From his living room window, Marcus watched Karen Simmons emerge from her house, leash in hand, walking her dog like any normal morning. She scanned the street, eyes narrowing at Marcus' driveway. Today, she would once again assert her control over his trash cans. Little did she know, Marcus had spent days preparing the ultimate surprise. As Karen approached the bin with her characteristic smirk, Marcus' finger hovered over his smartphone. The moment she reached out to tip the bin, he pressed activate. Immediately, the locking mechanism engaged, preventing her from flipping the can. Her hands slipped on the lid, and she stumbled slightly, utterly confused. The confetti cannon erupted, showering her head, shoulders, and clothes with a burst of bright colors. Karen shrieked, yanking her hands back. A mini sprinkler sprayed a gentle mist, perfectly timed to drench her shoes and the lower part of her clothes. A faint harmless paint spray hit her jacket, leaving a streak of neon yellow across her shoulder. Neighbors peeking from windows or walking their dogs gasped in unison. Some tried to hide their laughter, while others openly grinned. Marcus, calmly sipping his morning coffee, leaned back in his chair, heart pounding with excitement and satisfaction. Karen's face turned from confusion to shock to anger in under 10 seconds. She looked around wildly, trying to find out if anyone was watching, but Marcus' hidden camera captured every angle, and soon, every neighbor knew exactly what was happening. "Oh no, this isn't possible!" Karen shouted, attempting to regain control, but every move triggered another feature of the smart trash can. She tried to push it over, but the lock held firm. The confetti cannon fired again, a smaller, delayed burst, enough to keep her off balance. Marcus had set multiple triggers to ensure she couldn't predict the sequence. Meanwhile, the neighborhood erupted. People whispered, laughed quietly, and some even came closer, drawn by the commotion. Children pointing excitedly at the colorful spectacle, while Karen tried to compose herself, realizing she was the spectacle now, not Marcus' trash can. Marcus' smile widened. This wasn't just revenge, it was a lesson in humility and accountability, delivered in the most unforgettable way possible. Karen finally retreated, furious, her dog tugging at the leash. She tried to shout threats over her shoulder, but the neighbors' amused expressions silenced her. Marcus watched, unbothered, knowing he had executed the plan perfectly. Later that day, the hidden footage revealed every detail, Karen's repeated attempts, her shock, her stumble, and the escalating confetti and spray. Marcus now had irrefutable evidence of harassment, which would be crucial for the HOA meeting and any future disputes. By the evening, neighborhood group chats were buzzing. Texts flew across blocks. "Did you see Karen this morning? Marcus is a genius. I can't believe what happened to her." Marcus, in the safety of his home, finally allowed himself a small, satisfied laugh. Today, he had done more than just defend his property. He had turned the tables completely, creating a story that neighbors would retell for months. Karen thought she controlled Marcus' driveway. But Marcus' ingenuity and patience had created a spectacle that left the entire neighborhood talking, and Karen herself humiliated. Yet, the story wasn't over. Marcus had more moves to ensure justice and peace. The day after the confetti and sprinkler fiasco, the neighborhood was buzzing. Marcus' smart trash can have become the talk of the street. Yet, Marcus knew that public embarrassment alone wouldn't stop Karen from continuing her petty harassment. He needed formal consequences, something that would prevent future attacks and finally assert his rights. Marcus began by gathering all the evidence he had meticulously collected over weeks. Security camera footage showing Karen repeatedly tipping his trash cans. Time-stamped clips of her sneaking onto his property. The recordings from the smart trash can activation, showing her shocked reactions in vivid detail. Witness statements from neighbors who had seen her suspicious behavior. Armed with this evidence, Marcus drafted a formal complaint to the HOA. He explained clearly and professionally how Karen had violated neighborhood rules, trespassed on his property, and repeatedly harassed him. The documentation was thorough, leaving no room for doubt. When the HOA board received his complaint, they initially tried to downplay it. Karen, of course, denied everything, claiming she was just enforcing neighborhood standards. But Marcus' evidence was irrefutable. Every angle, every timestamp, every witness aligned perfectly. The board finally called for an official meeting. Marcus, calm and prepared, presented the evidence methodically. He showed video clips, explained Karen's consistent pattern of harassment, and emphasized the emotional and psychological impact of her actions on him. The room was silent as the board members absorbed the facts. Karen tried to interject, her voice trembling with frustration, but Marcus remained composed. He had anticipated every argument. If she claimed the videos were staged, he showed multiple angles and time stamps. If she claimed neighborhood rules allowed her behavior, he cited the HOA bylaws and legal statutes on property boundaries and harassment. If she tried to shift blame, Marcus had neighbor statements ready to corroborate the timeline. The board, realizing the weight of the evidence, voted unanimously to issue Karen a formal reprimand. She was fined for trespassing and harassment, and the HOA established stricter rules to prevent such incidents in the future. Marcus also made sure that a clause was added to protect homeowners from harassment by board members, a safeguard for himself and others. The victory was not just about the fine or the reprimand. It was about restoring his peace and asserting his rights. Marcus had turned the tables legally, showing that intelligence, preparation, and patience could triumph over arrogance and entitlement. Even after the HOA meeting, Marcus kept a low profile. He didn't gloat publicly, instead, he quietly ensured the neighborhood remained aware that harassment would no longer be tolerated. Neighbors approached him, thanking him for standing up not just for himself but for the entire community. Karen, on the other hand, became noticeably more cautious. She no longer openly interfered with Marcus' property, her confidence visibly shaken. Marcus' combination of technology, strategy, and evidence-based action had created a deterrent stronger than any public confrontation could. Karen thought she could continue her reign unchecked, but Marcus had crafted a strategy that ensured she faced consequences. Yet, the story wasn't fully over, the neighborhood still had one final chapter to witness, where peace and cleverness would fully triumph. The suburban neighborhood had finally returned to its usual calm, though whispers about Marcus' clever retaliation still floated in the air. Children would point and giggle when they saw his driveway, neighbors would smile knowingly, and even casual passers-by seemed to feel a sense of awe. Marcus, however, remained composed. After weeks of meticulous planning, execution, and legal maneuvering, Marcus had achieved more than just revenge. He had stopped Karen's harassment permanently, restored his own peace of mind, knowing that he could enjoy his property without fear, set a precedent in the neighborhood for handling similar disputes, ensuring that no HOA member could act with impunity. Each morning, Marcus would take his coffee to the porch, watching the sun rise over the manicured lawns, taking quiet satisfaction in the order he had restored. The smart trash can, now functioning normally, sat innocuously at the edge of the driveway. Its internal gadgets, once used for the ultimate revenge, had become a symbol, Marcus' cleverness, patience, and strategic thinking all encapsulated in a single object. Karen, meanwhile, had become noticeably cautious. She would pass Marcus' house on her daily walk, occasionally glancing toward the driveway, but she no longer attempted her petty disruptions. Her demeanor had shifted from smug arrogance to wary restraint, a subtle but clear acknowledgement of Marcus' victory. Neighbors continued to approach Marcus, offering congratulations, sharing how impressed they were with his ingenuity. Some chuckled at the confetti and sprinkler spectacle, others praised the legal strategy that had ensured justice was served. Marcus, always humble, accepted their compliments quietly, but internally, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. One afternoon, a neighbor asked him, "Marcus, do you ever regret how dramatic it all got?" He smiled and replied, "Sometimes, justice has to be memorable to make a point." Life gradually returned to normal. The HOA, now aware that residents would not tolerate harassment, began to operate more fairly, guided by the precedent Marcus had set. Marcus' home once again became a sanctuary, not just for him, but for his neighbors who admired his courage and cleverness. In the evenings, as Marcus sat on his porch, sipping coffee and watching the sunset, he reflected on the entire experience. He realized that revenge wasn't about anger, it was about strategy, patience, and creativity. By turning Karen's arrogance into her downfall, he had reclaimed his space, his peace, and his dignity. Sometimes, the smartest way to fight back isn't with anger or aggression, it's with patience, planning, and a little creativity. Marcus proved that a clever mind and a calm approach can turn even the most relentless harassment into a story everyone will remember. Marcus leaned back, a quiet smile on his face. His trash can, now peaceful and upright, stood as a reminder of a small victory, but a victory that spoke volumes. The neighborhood would never forget it, and neither would Karen. And so, life continued in the suburbs, but now with one very clear lesson: never underestimate the quiet, clever neighbor who knows how to fight back smartly.